Yahrzeit. The Yahrzeit is tomorrow, Saint Tammuz. And we thought at first we'd just do a family study, and then it occurred to us that we should invite friends and make it like an itvadu. It's not only a study, but like a get together of memory and learning. And so thank you for coming. And there's no one more special that we thought can lead the itvadu, like a gathering, more than Rav Avram Rosen, who's been a childhood friend of my father, our father, and he's been learning with my father for many years. He learned every day Hayom Yom, which was a Chabad daily study, arranged by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I guess that's what we're going to be beginning today. And very much looking forward. And anyone, it's not a class, it's not a lecture, it's just a gathering. You're welcome to come and go and add and interact. And share a memory, share thoughts, share a Torah teaching, whatever it is. Everyone's both on the Zoom as well. Whoever's on the Zoom is welcome to speak up and have audience. So, yeah.
Well, since their father's first operation, and he started learning with Rav Avram Yom Yom each day for 4 years, 4.5 years, 4 years. 4 years. Even if we would go to South Africa or Rav Avram was going somewhere, they always made sure that no matter what, there's going to be learning that day.
It's true.
But I'm sure you could expand on that.
No, it's great. It's a great way to talk about your father's being a masmid for this privilege. It's so good. And when traveled to Spain with Avram Moshe, Portugal also, I think.
Yeah.
Avram Moshe joined in. And United States, Boston, and other places in Eretz Israel, and in the hospital room,
Right.
while receiving a transfusion, we would often learn. And it was so inspiring to reap the benefits not only of his thoughtfulness about the teachings we were learning, but the idea that nothing could stand in the way of her learning. And it's one of the elements that comes in this incredible Sefer Hayom Yom that is Raphael and Nachum have said, that was compiled by the Lubavitcher Rebbe and the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe in Tavshin, published in Tavshin Gimel, 1943. So you can imagine what it was to bring out such a book, 1943. And the way that Reb Mechael, besides his commitment to learning and learning Hasidus together, that he was also the dedicated child of a Polish Jewish survivor. And so his connection, our connection together to that period of time, and so learning a Sefer that, even though it doesn't deal explicitly with the war, except for a few passages, that it's saturated with being a response to that period of time. In a way, I think that I see your father, his life was a response to that time. Again, not always directly. This bookshop is filled with many books that don't deal with the Holocaust, but the very project and vision of having a bookshop in the middle of Yerushalayim that would be able to nourish the neshamas of Jews all over the world, I think is a response to the Holocaust, to saying that the enemy is not at all going to set the terms, that we're going to go forward, we're going to be stronger than they are, and we're going to be able to learn day in and day out. So such a privilege. And as again, Nachum and Raphael mentioned, the idea of our learning together had behind it almost 60 years of friendship. Mechael and I grew up a 20-minute walk from one another, went to the same grade school, the same middle school, same high school, and then we were out of touch, physically at least, until we came to each in our own paths to Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, and a mutual friend told me that Reb Mechael was making a bris in Yerushalayim, and wouldn't I like to go? So I did, and then we were in contact for Baruch Hashem for the next 20 plus years. But we go back knew one another 62 years. So those years before we managed to navigate our way to Yerushalayim, and as far as we know, we're the only two from our class. It's one other person in the San Fernando Valley immediate area that we know is Shomer Shabbos, but I know of no one else, and I believe except for that acquaintance, that I hope there's many more that I don't know about, and the Reb Mechael didn't know about, but we navigated our way. But then we were in America, and Hayom Yom was crafted by the Lubavitcher Rebbe and his Shver, the previous Rebbe, in America. They had both escaped Europe by the skin of their teeth. The previous Rebbe from Poland, and he arrived in the United States on the 9th of Adar Sheni, Tafshin, 1940. And then he came with one of his daughters and her husband and a small entourage, but two other daughters were trapped in Europe. One in Poland, one in France. And the one in Poland, Shana Hornstein, her husband Menahem Mendel, never made it out. They were in the Warsaw Ghetto and were deported to Treblinka and murdered there, as far as we know. And the other daughter, Chayamushka, and her husband, Menahem Mendel, Rabbi Menahem Mendel, fled the invasion of the enemy in 1941, the spring of 1941, went south, and 1940, excuse me, they went south in France and had to wait a year until they received a visa and went from the south of France to Portugal, Lisbon. From there, where many refugees were able to get out, they came to the United States, and 2 years after, published this Sefer. And it's a book that is an American book in the sense that famously the previous Rebbe said that in response to the idea that America was a wasteland, that Yiddishkeit couldn't take root there, that he said no, it's no different. What took place in Europe, what took place in Eretz Yisrael, took place in North Africa. It could happen here, and it did. But Reb Mechael and I were the beneficiaries, more or less direct or indirect, of cultivating an idea of Yiddishkeit saturated with spirituality, saturated with joy, saturated with avoda, with being able to work to take the Jewish cause forward. So there's a story.
Hi.
Hi. Do you guys have drinks?
That has to be preceded by a l'chaim.
Does everyone have a...
Dima?
That's good. One more do.
Chaim, over there in the bleachers, branches. Chaim to all Shabri that were gathered together for an Ilui Nishmas of Mechael Zev ben Yaakov Shmuel. Shmuel first? Yeah?
We learned that
Lui Nishmas to Mechael Zev ben Shmuel Yaakov Zal. It's Neshama Shnev Aliyah, and with his diligent efforts of his family and friends and colleagues and patrons, surely does each and every day. I know I have the privilege of giving tzedakah every day, except for Shabbos and Tovim, every day. For davening, Shachris, Mincha through this year, and to the merit of Mechael Zev ben Shmuel Yaakov. So we say, L'chaim, Chaim Tovim B'Shalom, L'chaim V'Levracha, Chaim. The Sefer Hayom Yom has daily teachings. Tafshin, the period of year that was encompassed by the Sefer was a Shana Muberes, leap year, so there were 383 days, with the fact that both Cheshvan and Kislev were Chaser, were 29 days, so 383 days of teachings, of minhagim, of a seder of learning that heads each teaching of the days, Aliyah and the Chumash, of the Tehillim that's divided up for the month, and of the Tanya Yomi. So that it's expected that every reader, every chassid or aspiring chassid, some of us are, who learns this sefer has also the commitment to those shiurim, and plus that many others. And as Raphael just mentioned, wherever his father was, he would diligently set fixed times. It's one of the insistences of the teachings in Hayom Yom to have fixed times of learnings. And the Babja Rebbe elsewhere talks about if you set a fixed time of learning, 12 noon as we did, my father and I, that the learning becomes likewise fixed in you. So the fixing goes in two different directions. Both you set a time that then will draw you to that time on a daily basis, or a every other day basis, or a weekly basis, however it is, and that teaching becomes that much more a part of you. The saying of L'chaim Tovim V'Shalom and L'chaim V'Levracha makes up one of the teachings in Hayom Yom. Look, they're Hasidim, they Russian Hasidim, and they were used to drinking, so it was important to have such clarity about what you say when you drink if you're going to do it regularly. So the L'chaim Tovim Shalom, it's the teaching brings down. This is at the end of Adar Aleph, getting ready for Purim, so you have to get in the preparatory stages. And L'chaim Tovim V'Shalom is said, brings the teaching, because the first mention of wine and drinking of wine in the Chumash does not turn out so well. There's opinions that the Eitz Hadas was a grapevine, so that did not lead to the best outcome. And Noach, as we heard, after he emerges from the Teva, the ark, he also plants a vineyard and drinks wine, and things don't turn out for the best. So when we say, as we just did, and we can say again, L'chaim Tovim V'Shalom, that it's to try to give a life, goodness, and peace to what was done in the past, that we need to do better in the future. And that was one of the driving forces for Reb Mechael and I to be able to learn Hayom Yom, because there's so much hope that the past is not a, God forbid, a dead weight of baggage, but what we do in the present. In saying L'chaim Tovim V'Shalom, we can take what happened thousands of years ago at the time of Adam and Chava, of Adam and Eve, and rectify that, fix it, misakein that. And so it was for both of us learning together, who shared so much past. And as we learned, we would purposefully drift to a number of the regions of our past, sitting under the beautiful eucalyptus trees at our grade school and having lunch together there. And the way that was an oasis for both of us. But the past was not rigid and unbendable. It rather was that could be malleable, fixed, and transformed, and incredibly hopeful in that way. And that is the Hasidus that comes through Hayom Yom, which we remember was founded by the Baal Shem Tov, and his successor, the Maggid, then took over the reins, and his student, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, became the first Chabad Rebbe, and added to the mix of fervor and avoda in tefillah, the working in prayer that each and every Jew could do, no matter how learned or unlearned. Every Jew was indispensable and is indispensable to Hashem's plan. So the Alter Rebbe, as Rabbi Shneur Zalman is called, the Baal HaTanya, added the intellect to the mix, and that one could, by one's intellectual endeavor, tap into that transformative energy of the Baal Shem Tov. And then the other Chabad Rebbes that follow, teachings are taken from each of them. The Middah Rebbe, Rabbi Dov Ber, son of the Alter Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, Rabbi Menachem Mendel, who's the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shmuel, the Rebbe Maharaj, the youngest of 7 sons of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Rashab, Rabbi Shalom Dov Ber, son of the Rebbe Maharaj, and then the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz, Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak, who was son of the Rebbe Rashab. But the belief in Hasidus being able to fix, to make a tikkun for what had been done, was a driving force for mine and Mechael's learning. And even as we approach the Yahrzeit, that we really are permeated by the basis for these teachings, because in many places at least, the Yahrzeit these days is celebrated with making l'chaims and with nash. But in previous ages, before the Baal Shem Tov, and in my neighborhood, in Bayit V'Gan, which is mainly a Litvish neighborhood, and it has hands-off distance from Hasidus, people fast on the Yahrzeit. There's no tikkun like this. There's no l'chaim tovim v'shalom. There's no l'chaim v'lavracha. So anyone who is doing that, whether they know it or not, anyone who is making l'chaim tovim v'shalom, is in the Baal Shem Tov's debt. Wow, I don't have to fast on this day, and I get to make a l'chaim too. And that's so much in the spirit of what we brought to our learning. So we have to say, l'chaim, chaim tovim v'shalom. We have to, anything that the grapes set awry, we're going to fix it with our l'chaims in the merit of Mechael, Zev, Ben Shmuel, Yaakov, Zal, and be able to set us individually and collectively on the path of nurture and healing, and in spite of sad events that we surely all encounter in life, that a way to be able to persevere in bringing godliness and hope and joy to each and every day. Chaim. Chaim. Maybe we'll sing something?
Yeah.
So the teaching that comes on the 28th of Minat Rav reads as follows. There are two general approaches to healing physical illness. The teachings are in either Yiddish or Hebrew, and just for the sake of time, read the English translation, this one by Rebbe Uri Kaplun. Two general approaches to healing. To Aleph, to treat the particular organ or faculty that is damaged, ailing, or weak, or base, to strengthen the healthy organs and faculties so they will overcome the disability of the ailing organ or faculty and heal it. Analogous to this in the case of spiritual illness, are two approaches to avoda. What did I do?
Can I interfere? You're speaking of healing. Can I? I'd like to say, interject just Misha Bera. That's okay. So Misha Barach is for one of the twins who is now having an MRI.
Oh, wow.
So Misha Barach אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב משה ואהרון דוד ושלמה ויברך וירפא את התינוק בן עדינה שושנה. הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלך עמים עליו להחרימו ולפרטו להחזיקו ולהחייתו. ישלח לו מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים לרמח לבריו ששג ידע בתוך שאר חולי ישראל רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף. השתה בעגלה בזמן קריב ונאמר אמן.
Amen.
לחיים.
Beautiful.
I wasn't listening completely, but you were talking about it.
It's great. It's great. It's not just okay. It's great to be able to do, and we look forward to the good news that is there. And just my comment on this, and then I really want to also hear from others, because especially for Raphael, Natu, Avram Moshe, and Israel, Chaya Esther, that you were in the trenches, and of course, Rebbetzin Shira, that this teaching came maybe a month after we began learning. 28th of Menachem Av. Surgery was around this time in Tammuz. Chaya Esther's wedding was also right around that time. We learned, and then we learned this teaching. And this teaching just clearly made such a impression on both of us. Why? Because it's saying that there's two approaches to healing. You have to, of course, deal with what's not healthy. But the other side, and this is Reb Mechael, who was a strong man, who spent so much time building himself not only emotionally and personally and spiritually, but also physically, and saying that you have to strengthen the organs of the body and limbs of the body that are also already strong. And that's going to play a role in your being able to have the healing that's meant for you. And halavai, that would have brought a cure. But in any case, it brought such a sense of what they like to call, some circles, agency of being proactive, a sense of being able to take Reb Mechael, taking the self that was strong and becoming even stronger. And for me, just his efforts to do that. And were not just inspiring, they were awe-inspiring. So maybe you all want to comment on that.
So, my last trip with my dad was with Rubal also. We went to Switzerland. Yep. And so one day we went on like a walk, a hike, I don't know what you want to call it. And it was a full day, and I remember my feet started to, they were like really hurting.
Long walk.
Yeah, it was a very long walk.
I think it was like 14 kilometers.
Oh, I don't know. We went up and around, and it was way beyond what we all expected, and it was just, so my feet are killing me, and my dad, he has his atrophy and everything else, and
And he's just like, he's continuing to go, and he's not complaining about anything. And I'm saying, oh my gosh, I mean, if my feet are hurting, what is he going through, you know? And he's just trucking through, and you have to keep up with him, and it's like, I mean, at some point he's like, you know, walking a little, looks like his little shicker dick, but he's continuing to go, and
Wow.
and it's just like, it's just unbelievable. And it's actually, interestingly, so Friday, this Friday, I woke up in the middle of the night. I was not feeling well. I was like, very hard for me to walk, and I was just totally out of it. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is like, this, you know, I'm barely able to walk. I'm just 30 years old. Like, and this is just like a one-time thing. Thinking, wow, I mean, if this is, I mean, this can't be anything close to what my dad went through for, you know, 4, almost 5 years, and he's just like, he just piled through it. Oh my gosh, where am I, and where was he, you know? But that was, as you said, that, I mean, that was my dad's strength. I mean, physically he was very strong. I don't know. I mean, Binyamin, he's also a strong guy, and I mean, you go to a gym, you don't see too many people benching 4 plates, squatting 6. I mean, it's not something you usually see, and even the people that go and they'll spend, you know, they'll spend all that time to get there. Most won't, you know, but it was, I mean, the truth is, it's a different strength. It's more of a mental strength than it is anything else. I mean, anyone who's, you know, really done any sort of powerlifting also knows, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really more of a mental thing than anything else. And it's just, you go in there and you're gonna lift whatever it is that you're gonna lift, and you go in and you say, I'm gonna do it. And it's, I mean, if you lost that, then you, no matter how strong you are, you're not gonna get it. And so I mean, so my dad, so he always had that strength, and persistence. I mean, even, you know, sit down in the middle of a rainy day, in the middle of our trip, and that's it. We're doing our yom yom. I don't care what else is going on. It's raining. I don't know where we have to be, but
on the train or walking on a hike.
It doesn't matter what. This is my schedule. This is what's going to happen. You know, Shabbos is coming in. Okay, so the car's not parked. Who cares? I'll get a 2,000 euro fine. Who cares? Shabbos is coming in. Let's do Shabbos. Wherever people will be. You know, it's just like that persistence that Jews Ksheoev, so.
Yeah, that's the last parashiyot of also, like, I'm gonna be doing a mess of things. Like, just 2 parashas ago we had Ba'arotcha, and they say, like, what's the it's like Aaron was given the lighting of the menorah, and the big emphasis is Shircha Gdora Mishalehem, yours is greater than theirs, because then the rest of the Nesiim, the tribal leaders, brought all the agalot, all the different gifts to the Mishkan, but Aaron's was every morning, and to kindle the lights, and then we also have with the Lata Tamid, you have, like, I think there's like a pasuk, it's something like Zot Torat HaOlam, or Zot Torat HaOlam Nachon Tamid. That's because they say, what is the aspect of Tamid, the aspect of, like, continuous, again and again, like, not with no stop. And then in Shabbat, my mother read this beautiful article was referred to her by our neighbor Sima about Rabbi Akiva, and it's like he connected the fact that like Rabbi Akiva, the greatest of our sages, the thing that kind of awakened him was this instance where he saw the water on the rock. And it's like that's the continuous stream. It's like continuous is the key. It's like the learning of Hayom Yom. It's like I think that was like the strength that you're talking about. It's like doesn't matter whatever surgery my father went through, and he came out in whatever physical strength or weakness, and he just began again. Like he started walking. I remember when he couldn't walk, it was like, okay, I did 2 steps today. I did 3 steps, literally steps. Like there were times he couldn't do more than a step. But he would
still continue.
But he would also count it. It was like I did 1 step, and you write it down. Today I did 2 steps. You wrote it down. Today I went up the hill in 1 minute and 40 seconds. Like this, I think the strength of continuity, like not just not giving up. Being willing to committed to continue, committed. Like I think not only measuring big things, but like even small measures, as long as it's continuous. I think, like my brother said, it's like it can be recognized in everything. It can be recognized in the study. It can be recognized in his personality in the bookstore, the way he measured things. He wasn't like he measured things in the bookstore. He counted. It was like he was into the details of things, making sure the details continue. Same when he was healing. I think like in every aspect of healing, in every aspect of learning, that can be, I think that can easily be found. Which is connected to strengthening, focusing on strengthening what strength you have. So if you have the strength to do even a small improvement, well, count that, give it importance, and try to expand on that.
Beautiful.
Chaim. We should pass it around.
The shop played a very big role, whether your father was here or not here, in ways certainly that you're talking about, meaning measuring, taking inventory. So a number of the teachings in Hayom Yom are about taking inventory of oneself, stock taking, cheshbon nefesh, doing that every night Kriya Shema Alamita, that the prayers that we say before going to sleep, that one also does a stock taking. But very importantly, as we would go back and forth between inventory for the shop and inventory on oneself, it's not an inventory that's meant to deplete one or to show how negligent one was. It's to give an appropriate evaluation of oneself, so one can always the next day go further. And the bookshop became this wonderful, real place of inventory where I could learn from him how he went about doing that. The end of the month, end of the year, so on and so forth, that would apply to every teaching here in a way that was extraordinarily relevant. Raphael, do you want to comment on it?
Well, I was thinking once you finish speaking, I was thinking of doing. I was thinking of of speaking on like sort of an overview on my father's life. By that, actually studying him. But I'll do that. I'll do that soon.
Okay. Okay. Whenever you like. Can do. I mean, the shop is talked about explicitly, not Pomeranz bookstore per se, but what it means to be in a shop. So the 16th of Iyar, that the Rebbe Maharash, Rabbi Shmuel, meets with one of his Hasidim, Rebbe Elia, and he says, Rebbe Elia, I envy you. You travel to regional fairs and markets, and you meet many people. When you're in the midst of your transaction, and you get to talk with someone about a Torah thought, or a saying from Ein Yaakov, and you inspire them to study Nigla and Chassidus, great joy is generated above. Hashem pays up the commission for this with blessings of children, health, and livelihood. And the bigger the market, the more work, and the more livelihood. So this was a shop. Reb Mechael here with people coming in to make a purchase, and he would talk to them in probably each and every case. And they might talk Torah, but they might talk about their lives, and their lives became Torah. And the Hayom Yom is very, very insistent that Torah learning not remain sequestered in the base medrash or the shul, in the study house or the synagogue, in the places where it's most at home. But it's our obligation as Jews to take it out into the Rishus HaRabim, into the shops, into the streets, and in the case of Reb Mechael, into the hospitals, where there he was with bringing the tzedakah box so that Dr. Brenner and others there could do the mitzvah of not only him at whatever stage and however he was feeling of his treatment, but they would have the opportunity for the mitzvah. And with Dr. Brenner to bring a shofar that he loved to blow. And Reb Shira can speak about this. She was on hand that, from what I heard from Mechael, he brought the shofar and asked if he could blow. And Dr. Brenner said, wait just a minute, I want to bring everyone else to be able to hear. In a hospital undergoing treatment. Yes, I mean, how many of us can bear witness that we did that? Or during Sukkot, going for a treatment during Sukkot, bringing a lulav esro, and for the first time, giving Dr. Brenner the opportunity to hold a lulav esro. Never before. This is someone who was very ill, as we know. And yet, the needs of others, spiritually and physically, were there. And of course, accompanied by his family on every level, but sight set. And of course, this was, going hand in glove with our learning. Not staying sequestered, not staying cloistered, but taking what you have and bringing it out, and it becomes greater. Your learning becomes more gigantic through your interactions of this kind wherever you are. And Reb Mechael took to this like a fish to water, as they say, and went further in each and every case. It's really, the world needs to hear. The world needs to do. So our learning was not sequestered in its own right. It was for each of us to be able to do, and that's one of the aspects of the collaboration between the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe, that the most fundamental element always in Yiddishkeit is the deed, is doing. If learning doesn't lead to doing, then it remains aloft. And Reb Mechael would bring this down in the shop, in the hospital, in the streets. So we have to say, L'chaim, maybe there's a little bit more. L'chaim. Find its way over. Thank you. Shkoch. Shkoch. And send to the soul of Mechael saved and Shmuel Yaakov Zal should be every day. Like he was and is a Hayom Yom for each of us. To be able to be empowered to each day go further, to do more Ma'asim Tovim. Chaim. Maybe 5 more minutes, Raphael. Yeah, is that good? Yeah?
Whatever you want.
I have a long spiel.
Wherever you're doing.
That's good.
That's his name.
Troy, it's a Ikar Makshor.
When I'm there,
So there's a number of teachings that talk about so beautifully that doing a favor for another person, doing what's called in Yiddish a toiva. And so on the 5th of Iyar, the Alter Rebbe received the following teaching from the saintly Reb Mordechai, who heard it directly from the Baal Shem Tov. A neshama, soul, can descend into this world and live a number of years just in order to do a favor for a fellow Jew in material matters, and how much more so in spiritual matters. Meaning, whatever our life is, I shouldn't say we, I'm sure this illustrious group has many great milas in thinking of these matters, but my life revolves around me. And the Baal Shem Tov's teaching is my life doesn't revolve around me, because if I think about it, I'm sent here with the express purpose on the shlichus as an emissary to be able to do someone a favor. I think Reb Mechael asked very, very shrewdly, so what happens when you've done the favor? Right? I mean, if you're sent down to do that favor, okay, all of a sudden someone appears in the shop and says, can you loan me 20 shekel, or you can help me change my tire, or you can watch my child, or whatever it is. So you've done it, 10, 20, 30 minutes, you've done it. What happens then? So the Lubavitch Rebbe says we do more favors. That the favor that we did, that we were sent down for, opens, as it were, a gate for doing more. It's not like we reach the end of the line. It's rather that expands our repertoire of possibilities. And this doing of favors, as we heard from in the shop, which you all know much better, of course, than I do, but I have some intimation, and in the shul, in the hospitals, in wherever Reb Mechael was, that doing of a favor. And the previous time, I think that at least one of the previous times that we gathered together, with also Reb Les, I think, standing so faithfully at his video camera there, was when Reb Mechael and I were learning about birthdays, Chabad's approach to birthdays. And as the teaching that comes, the Lubavitch Rebbe brings it on his own birthday. It's the only teaching in Hayom Yom that directly relates to his own life. And he teaches on one's birthday one should spend time in seclusion, bringing to mind recollections from the past and pondering over them. As to those that call for fixing or tshuva, one should do tshuva and should fix them. So on one's birthday, that's what one should do. There's a famous story that's done that the Rebbe would himself do this, the Lubavitch Rebbe. He would go into seclusion on his birthday, and one of the presidents, I believe President Carter in the United States, called the Rebbe a happy birthday. And the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Groner, Rabbi Klein, says, I'm sorry to the Secretary of the President of the United States, I'm sorry he's not available. No, you don't understand. This is the President of the United States who's calling. No, well, but the Rebbe on his birthday, he's in seclusion. But so on and so forth. Rebbe didn't take the call. So, but that's one of the facets, and the other for birthday is to give extra tzedakah, to begin one's Mizmor Tehillim, the psalm that accords with one's year. So if one turns 30, as my daughter Tzvia Rachel did yesterday, that she begins with Psalm 31, saying on a daily basis. Reb Mechael took that on, and one then, if possible, gets a new fruit that one hasn't eaten, says Shechianu on one's birthday to bring in that newness of the year that's never been before, and one makes a Farbrengen. So we gathered in the shop here on Yud Aleph Teves at night, and we made a Farbrengen for Reb Mechel's birthday. Great thing. And the way that he was just opened himself so much to the additions that our learning could bring, as I tried to do as well. And when it came that we're dealing here with teachings, every teaching, Hayom Yom, is the writing of the Rebbe Rayatz. It's from his letters, from his speeches, from his discourses that the Rebbe, his son-in-law, put together, but it includes all the Rebbes mentioned before, plus Reb Zusha, plus the Meor Anayim, the Chernobyl Rebbe, plus the Shmuel Zaydi. So Rebbes are part and parcel of a Hasidic life, meaning some way they can beautifully be a vehicle for Hashem's blessings in ways that can allow us to move further from the whatever restrictions we have, or whatever is ailing us, or whatever needs further strengthening that's already strong. So I know Reb Mechael, he tried to get a bracha from one Rebbe, and the door is just, it's very difficult to do that. So, and he also then took my, I think I made the suggestion, but he acted on it diligently every week, every Monday, to send to the Ohel Lubavitcher Rebbe upon a Pidyon Nefesh to ask for a bracha, for Refuah Shlema, and for blessings for his Eneklak, his grandchildren, Yankel, at that time Yankela and Danielle, and for all that were in his circle. He would do that every Monday. And it so happens that my son-in-laws are Hasidim of Rav Ichgemaya Morgenstern, Mikubal here in Yerushalayim. It's also an Admor Rebbe, and it occurred to me that would be a door that I had some protexia to be able to open. And on the plus side, Rav Morgenstern also comes from London originally, so he's a Dover Anglit, and that didn't hurt also. So indeed, Rav Mechael went to see Rav Morgenstern, and the bracha, and I had the privilege of being there when we went. One of the times was on Hanukkah, and we went first to Bells, and we were there in the auditorium of Bells and heard 6,000 Hasidim say Amen to the Bells of Rebbe's bracha on the Hanukkah. And then we went to Rav Morgenstern's, who always does things later. And while for me, it was too pressed. There were too many people there. I couldn't stand it. I had to leave. Rav Mechael, he stayed. He was there. He worked his way up to Rav Morgenstern, so he was there. So and then called periodically, and I was just with my son-in-law Yehuda. It's very close to Rav Morgenstern's. I said, so what would you say about Reb Mechel's connection with Rav Morgenstern? What was that about? He said, Rav Morgenstern was really taken in a way that he's not. People come to see, he says, people come to see him every day. They ask for brachas. He says, but he said there was something. He said, so what was that something? He said, I think it was Reb Mechel's Tamimus. His, how to translate tamimus. Purity, sincerity, maybe. That was there that Rav Morgenstern would give suggestions, things to do. Read a few lines every day from Likutei Moharan. Rav Mechael would do it day in and day out. It's there. Huh? He says it's going to be something, it's going to help. I'm going to do it.
I think there was also another side to it where it would also be a question as to how would this, do you guys remember something? Like I remember originally he was given the task of learning Chulin, yeah?
Oh, but that wasn't from Rav
Oh, that wasn't him?
No,
okay.
That was from Rav Kanievsky.
Okay, but to
very
my dad,
different,
he's like
very different worlds and very different.
Okay.
I'm sure that was there too.
No,
The questions I remember like, so how many, how long, how much, what if I don't understand?
yeah, if I don't understand, how could this be worth something?
I had an alarm set on my phone. Every week, my alarm went off, and I would go to Mechael and I'd say, "You have to call Rabbi Morgenstern."
5 o'clock on Thursdays. Yes?
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing.
Every
Amazing.
week.
I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Incredible. And he would do it, right?
And he would do it.
You would with your
So Mechael, it's time.
No,
I had 2 alarms.
You're
One
being
is
able to keep him in the muscle that helping. Amazing. So let me finish.
Can I just interrupt real quick?
Yeah, of course.
So
It's not
you
an
mentioned,
interruption.
so you mentioned like the small things, those small like of like giving and whatever. So I remember, so growing up, so my dad, you'd be kind of you'd be a little bit awkward. You'd walk around the street and you'd send like some remarks to people or say like stuff or do funny things that would as a kid made you feel
I
a
think you
little
need
bit.
examples if you understand.
Yeah,
Like if someone muscular walked up the street, he'd go up to his muscles and say, "Do a muscle." Or someone was running by, he would turn around and run with him and say, "Faster, faster." or if someone had like a funny hairdo, he'd be like, "Can I?" He was if you realize someone was doing something,
Always like
also to do like an impression, it was important for him to like make sure
Acknowledge
that
it.
acknowledge that the impression was made. If you had like funny hair, okay, I see your hair. Can I rave your hair?
Amazing.
You make like some funny comments or just like all sorts of things. And then as a kid it was like embarrassing.
Yeah.
But my but
Carl Sanders.
Well, my dad, it'd be like, I put a smile on his face, but, and it's something that only really hit me, I think, just in the past few years, like the importance of it. I mean, my dad would always say, I'd finish, talk to him on the phone, he'd say, okay, I have a mission for you. You have to make 3 people smile today. Or you have to make so-and-so people smile today. And, I mean, it's a small thing, and most people are too embarrassed to do it. But it's it's just like, all you have to do is go on a hike, you see someone taking a selfie and be like, I don't know.
You join in the
Yeah, do
photograph.
something. I mean, it was like, go and do like a funny face or be like, we should charge you for each one of those. I mean, you're stopping everyone, or so just like throw some funny comment, which would usually just like embarrass someone, but it makes that person's trip and it puts a smile on their face, and it's like a small thing with a small price to pay.
One of Abba's favorite things was
Hang on one
to
second.
go into
Hang on one second. That's why the kippah that you chose is so appropriate. Turn around.
Even the keepers smile. Great. We can say about that.
Oh, you like to go into people's family pictures? Let's say people would go do a picture in the kotel, then he would come in back and just put his face there. So afterwards, years back, people are going to look at the pictures and say, who's that guy?
Amazing. So, last short installment, Yahrzeit tonight, which we've just come into, Zion Tammuz. So here we were learning Hayom Yom for 4 years, and what was our over 60 years together, and that the Yahrzeit should come is a few days after that of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Gimel Tammuz. And personally speaking, my mother's Yahrzeit is Ches Tammuz. So the closeness of our bond, I think, is displayed however Hashem wanted that to come out. Two people in my life who were so meaningful for so long to be back to back. And this coming weekend is Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, which is known as Chag HaGeula. The Rebbe Rayatz, the previous Rebbe, Yosef Yitzhak, who was arrested in Tuf Reish Pei Zion, 1927, on the 15th of Sivan, and was for his underground activities of Jewish learning, and he was held in solitary confinement in prison with a death sentence. And through various interventions and miracles, the death sentence was commuted on 3rd of Tammuz, and he was sent into exile for a number of days then, and released on 12th, 13th of Tammuz. 12th of Tammuz is also his birthday. But one of the stories that comes from that extraordinary time that's so close is that the previous Rebbe was being interrogated, wouldn't say a thing. So the interrogator, famous story, interrogator takes out a gun, says, maybe this will make you talk. He said, you think, the previous Rebbe says to the interrogator, you think that toy can make me talk? Let me tell you, you have to know that you Bolsheviks, said you have one world and many gods. And we, the Jewish people, have two worlds and one God. And that's the difference. So as we're here making having the privilege to make an extraordinary connection between this world and the next world, the two worlds that are our worlds that we believe in, hook, line, and sinker, that we migrate from one to the other, and we communicate, and we ask for Reb Mechael to be our indefatigable advocate in the next world, for his Rebbetzin, for his children, for his Eniklak, his grandchildren, for his friends and patrons, and Klal Yisrael. We need him. Continue to need him. And I'm sure he's doing his utmost, as he always did, in our learning, in our being together. Each one of us, I'm sure, has a galaxy of stories. So we have to say l'chaim, l'chaim, tovim, v'shalom, l'chaim, v'levracha, that for a Ilui Nishmas, that this special day will know that the neshama of Reb Mechael sends even further than normally through this year, that his family has been so diligent. Chaim L'chaim, Mechael Zev, Ben Shmuel,
Shmuel Yaakov.
Shmuel Yaakov, yeah? Shmuel Yaakov. Chaim. Zal.
So I was thinking of, Nachum wanted to do a learning in honor of our father. I thought that every person in itself is a learning, and I thought it would be appropriate to learn my father. And the way that I think the best is to learn is from his own life and what developed into what thing, and also what Rav Avram said in the beginning. I think that summarized, I think, our father's life was that he was a response to the Holocaust. So I thought you can't speak about my father without first talking about his father, which was in the Holocaust. So Yaakov.
Shmuel Yaakov.
He went by Yaakov.
But his name was actually Shmuel Yaakov.
Right, but for some reason he never used that name.
Yeah.
Also, my father never used that
Right,
name for him.
right. And that's why I'm pausing.
So I just made myself some kind of outline to help me just go through the notes that So I'll start by and anytime you guys, anyone wants to interrupt, because they all want to share something, or especially you guys, also you, Esther, then you guys can interrupt. I'm going to try to go, I'm not too much into details, because there's a lot of details. So first, my grandfather Yaakov, he was born in Poland, Shilovice. He was the oldest in his family, and he was like the main provider for the family. They all lived in one house. They were a relatively wealthy house, and relatively, no one was really wealthy, but the non-Jews there saw them as wealthy. Thank you, Rav Avram.
Thank you, Reverend. Forgive me, I have another commitment. I'll look forward to hearing very much. Shkoach. Oh,
So in the beginning they were in the ghetto in Shilovitz, and then he was in Starchovitza. It was a labor camp, and he always said that it was worse than Auschwitz. And also different people that were in that camp said that Auschwitz was like paradise compared to Starchovitza. In Starchovitza he got a bullet in his arm, I think, and he got typhus. And my father always said that he was very streetwise, like witty, and that he knew how to take care of himself. There's one story that, first, I don't want to be, it's not for us to be judgmental at all. There's one story that I think that was something that went with him for his entire life, and I think my father saw it as that, was that since he was very, he knew how to take care of himself, he would have a needle and a thread. And there was one time that he changed the number on his shirt to a dead man's number.
So you could be killed for having a needle. You weren't allowed to have needles, and I just read about that in one of the books on the Holocaust. You weren't allowed to have a needle and thread. I don't know either.
So he changed the number, and we don't know what that means, but a lot of Holocaust survivors after the war haven't spoken for reasons that they felt that that the reason they lived was on cheshbon, someone else. And my father said that when my grandfather's deathbed, he said one thing. He said, "I've sinned." He didn't say what about, but my father for some reason felt that it has to do with the guilt that he felt, that maybe, just maybe, it could be that something that he's done there in the past has affected him, affected someone else. It's not for sure. No one knows for sure, but that's the type of stuff that he dealt with as him living in the United States, and I think that's also the type of questions that my father had in his back of his mind.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
A lot of, this is from people that I've met, a lot of people felt that they were guilty, that they survived, where others didn't, and they carried their guilt with them because they managed to survive and others didn't.
Right.
Not that they did something
Right.
terrible that they survived, but just that they survived and the rest of the families didn't. It was a tremendous guilt to carry, tremendous burden to carry.
So, yeah. Anyway, he continued to Dachau after Auschwitz, and my father checked he was the last train before the death march. When he was released, he was the last one in his family that survived, and then he got a letter from the United States from some kind of relative, and then later on he got a letter from his sister, and when he got that letter, then he fainted because he thought that no one else survived. Later on he found out he also had a cousin that survived that lived in Rehovot. So he got to a year later, I think he was just one more story. I mean, there's a lot of stories that he had. I'll say one story that he survived. A big miracle that he survived was that he was giving out soup and to the Nazi officers, and he wanted to see something in the women's side or something like that, and he went up on a chair to look, and then when he went down, he put his foot inside the soup, in the Nazi soup, and he was for sure that's it. And instead, everyone just laughed, and that's it. They all laughed, and nothing happened.
Wow. What a story.
So after the war, he met a friend that was planning to go back to Shilovitz, and he told him not to. He warned him about it, and then that friend went, and he was murdered in a pogrom. In Kilch, right. His sister also went.
Was it a cousin?
A friend.
His sister did the same thing, and she was saved by someone from the community that afterwards, years later, when my father was in Poland, he met her on her deathbed.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so he got to the United States, and he was there was like not a community, like a club of people that from Shilovitz originally, and the head club was Yaakov. What's his name? Also Yaakov, right? And he saw our grandmother dancing, and also we just read his diaries not long ago. He saw our grandmother dancing, and he wanted to marry her, so they got married. Later on, he moved to Los Angeles to be close to his sister, and that's where Abba grew up, and that was his background. He was working in the beginning. He was working in a leather factory. That's what his profession in
Uppers.
in Shilovitz. Yeah, he was a professional in uppers.
Shoe uppers.
Shoe uppers. זה הלמעלה של הנעל. Shoe uppers. So, and Abba said that he has very good memories of just being in the factory, talking to the people, playing with all the leather. And also I think over there was where he's, if you look years forward, that's where he started to learn from his father, his work ethics, I could say. Grandpa Jack, he used to put in extra hours, but he wouldn't log it in because he wanted to give the impression that he's a good worker. And he was a good worker even in the regular hours, but he wanted to do extra and show that he, in a small amount of hours, he did this much. And so he was very chavutz.
Hard worker.
Okay. Abba, our Baba, she was mostly at home, and she would be making dog bridges. Britches, and you remember my father always said he was a mama boy, and he would make bridges with her, and that was something that he remembers very well. And they would sell these britches for like nothing, right? Something interesting that my father brought up, I had a lot of conversations with my father, and something that he was very emotional about was that when he was a kid, he was, and Uncle Albert, I heard him also say that Abba was very good in killing ants. You'd be outside and just, you do all of lots of different tricks to kill ants, and that's something that later on he very regretted, and he felt that he has to do a tikkun. So every time he would walk in the road, and there were a trail of ants, he would make sure and warn everyone not to step on the ants, or I don't know. It's something that he was very felt that he has to do the tikkun of his childhood. In terms of how the Holocaust affected him growing up, then I remember there's a story where they would watch some kind of Western on television, and then Grandpa Jack would come, and if he would hear gunshots, then you would just turn off the TV. Or another story was that my Bubby wanted to bring a dog into the house, and he was very adamant not to bring the dog because he remembers taking a bone out of a dog's mouth. And then she won. They had the dog, and he liked the dog very much. And another thing was about food, and that's something also that I think Abba took very much into his life later. Was Grandpa Jack, if no one would finish his food, then he would finish it all, and that's something that also Abba would do. And he would also in restaurants, he would if someone left a half a plate, then he would want to eat that unless we said no.
Even if it wasn't our plate.
But that was something that he mentioned a lot, is not taking anything for granted and to appreciate all what you have. So we were all raised, I think, third generation to finish our food on our plate. At least I was.
In the books, so whenever people often throw away like a shake they came in with or a drink, they always took it and be like, okay, תמיד עשה להם כזה. תמיד היה לו משהו לומר. כאילו אם הם סיימו את זה, if they were throwing away something that was finished, then he was like very impressed by it. But if it wasn't, then he was always like,
I remember
he did something.
On our way to Switzerland, and this way our promotion is a lot like Abba. On our way to Switzerland, then the Swiss are, they for some reason they're very makpid Swiss, and they didn't let him bring in his jam or something like that. And Abba had basically it was just an hour. Abba was
we drove
trying to convince them in any which way that that's his medicine, and just not to throw away his jam. But anyway, going a few years forwards, then there's a nice story. I won't get into it. How
By the way, Rafal, when I was with Abba in Portugal, then we had this bottle of milk, like this full milk carton, and we were going through security, and they said, "Okay, you can't take that through." So Abba had me finish the milk carton. Oh, and to have a stomach ache.